everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. Two stakes races on tap at Keeneland on Saturday, including the Grade 2 Elkhorn. We're going 1.5 miles on the turf. This race is carded as race number 8. Let's take a look at this field. 3 turns at Keeneland for 1.5 miles. And Godolphin has another very strong entrant from the Charlie Appleby barn. That's the 4. Bold Act to attracts Frankie Dettori, and this horse is already has winning experience at Keeneland. He won the Sycamore under similar conditions last fall.
Yeah, they shipped him over last October to run this course and distance in the Sycamore. And he got the job done there as the favorite, Dan. And he also ran way better than it looks on paper that day. We'll get to that race in a little bit. He's got a race off the layoff this year, and it was a good one last time in Dubai, going 1.5 miles.
But he's facing a very good field, which includes arguably Southern California's best turf marathoner, and the 10 missed the cut. The 3 Highland Chief, who was last seen in the 2022 Breeders' Cup Turf. This is a pretty strong field, and we'll throw up our Timeform US pace projector. Odd to see a red bar fast pace in 1.5 mile race, Mike. Silver Knot, though, the 11, did all the dirty work when we last saw him in the Hollywood Derby. He ran quite well that day. Now is a first start as a 4-year-old. If he can get to the lead and somehow back things down, he'll be tough.
Yeah, we'll see how he handles. This is a horse that they never really stretched all the way out as a younger horse. So we'll see how he handles the added distance here, breaking from the outside. But he could certainly make the lead.
I think he makes the lead, and I don't think he has to work as hard to do it. But if he does, the Gray Wizard, the number 1, has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. And Mike, you've always been a little bit of a fan of the Gray Wizard, trained by Graham Motion. I thought he ran really well in the 2-mile Belmont Gold Cup 2 starts back. It wasn't the greatest trip in the world, and he caught an odds-on stayer from Europe. They ran him in the Bowling Green after that. That was a very tough field. He got wired by Channel Maker, and the 7th place finisher came back to run second. 3 in a row, grade 1s or grade 2s, all with good numbers.
Yeah, I mean, this horse, I'm with you. His Belmont Gold Cup 2 back going the 2 miles. He actually ran really well in there. His Bowling Green, the last time I saw him, just put a line through it. He was totally eliminated in that race. The favorite lost his rider on the final turn, and the Gray Wizard was behind him, and he just got totally wiped out at that point. So just forget about that race. It's a layoff since then. This is a horse, though, who, 1.5 miles in an allowance race here last April. He ran huge that day with a big finish. He wants distance, Dan. He just needs a trip. He's going to be a price in here. And I think he's really underrated.
And Graham Motion, one of the best off of layoffs, has this horse in steady training at his Fair Hill base. King Curlin is the number 2, taking a big step up in class. This will be his first stakes run on the turf. His most recent start was a first level allowance. They stretched him all the way out to 1.5 miles, and he seemed to appreciate it, scoring by a half length at 8-1. This is just a much different scenario from a class standpoint.
Yeah, they're just hoping that they have a new horse here. They stretched him out to this distance last time, and it worked. He got the job done here. He did get a perfect trip in this race, but you can see by the way he's sort of finishing there, Dan, seems like the 1.5 miles was really no issue for him. So it feels like they're just hoping they have a new horse now going longer distances.
Highland Chief is classy enough to win this race. We saw him win the Grade 1 Man of War in 2022. He beat a nice horse that day in Gufo. We know he likes Keeneland. He won the Sycamore in 2022, his final start before the Breeders' Cup Turf. In the Breeders' Cup Turf, listen, that's a tough spot. 4 next out winners, best turf horses in the world, yada, yada, yada. Where's he been?
That's a real issue for this horse. He's obviously talented enough to win here, but you're dealing with a very long layoff for a horse who's now 7 years old. So, and even if you think, listen, he's still going to be able to run, he's still going to be as good or close to as good as he once was. You still have to, give him some consideration here off a long layoff that he might need a race going 1.5 miles. I mean, listen, will you be shocked if he runs really well in here and competitive? No. Do you want to bet a horse like this against this field at the morning line odds of 5-1? I would say no, but that's your call.
Now, he's had a year-plus layoff in the past, and he came back and he needed a race. The prep before the Man of War, that was a second-level allowance. Highland Chief's out of conditions. If you're going to run him, you got to run him in a graded stakes race going long. I have a feeling he might need one, even with the great motion in his corner. Bold Act is the number 4. He shipped over here. He won the Sycamore. He shipped back to Dubai. He won last time out in the Group 3 Dubai City of Gold Stakes. The pace was pretty fast in this race. I thought Bold Act got a very nice closer's trip, mid-pack 2-path. eased out here, and he just runs by these horses. I don't think much of the field he beat in here. I am not a fan of the runner-up Warren Point, but I did like the way Boldak did this.
Yeah, you just have to. I think you have to really like it, even if you don't like the field he's beating. He's doing it pretty easily here. He got a good trip, and he's just staying on to the end here, and winning clear under the wire. I just feel like it was a perfect comeback race for this kind of a horse. And then you go back to the Sycamore when they shipped him here last year. I mean, you can go back and watch that replay and draw your own conclusions, Dan. I don't know what you thought about it, but I actually liked the horse that finished second in there, Cellist, who was on the lead. They didn't make him go fast. He had a clear lead in the stretch, and Bold Act was nowhere at the top of the stretch, and it just felt like it was going to be impossible for him to win from there. And he finally got clear for the final furlong and just came and ran that field over. I mean, I was really taken with this Sycamore, and I liked his return from the layoff as well.
He showed class, showed ability, and the pace might not be as slow this time around. He might get even more to run at. Dyna Drive, I thought, had a perfect trip when winning at this distance. In the Connolly, in his seasonal debut, he caught yielding turf, which is always helpful at Keeneland, where it seems to rain every week this spring. They then ran him in the McDermott last time out. It was just a completely different scenario. He didn't get that kind of trip. He fell far behind. He gave an even finish. The runner-up came back, ran third in the Pan Am with a little bit of a difficult trip with a 93 buyer. He has figs that say he can win. I wonder where he classes up with these horses.
I worry the same, Dan. I mean, I get that it's, Maker, and it seems like Maker's sort of gotten him good, going longer distances. He has that race too back that you can point to, but that race to me kind of feels like an outlier. I mean, it was a yielding turf course. He got a perfect trip, and they just sort of put distance on that field where nobody else really ran. And then he just sort of came back to earth last time with a much tougher trip. I'm just not sure how good this horse is. I respect that it's Maker going long, and he's going to be a price in here. I'm just not sure that he's good enough.
Now, the last two times the number 6 When True stepped on turf, he won both of those races, albeit against weaker competition, but he did so when pressing the pace. He has been racing recently over the all-weather surface at Turfway Park. He was 1,000,000 to 1 in the Kentucky Cup Classic last time out, showed speed, tired. They're taking the blinkers off, and again, he did run well without blinkers on turf at Woodbine, but again, there are some class concerns.
Yeah, he looks like he's pretty hard to make in here. First of all, the first 3 races here for this trainer since they switched over, they're not good. And he's the horse who wants to be forward. It seems like if he doesn't make the lead, he's just not quite as good. And I don't know, maybe he will make the lead here. I'm not sure it makes a difference.
Usually the class pyramid for European races sort of goes France, and then you've got England and Ireland in the second tier, and then maybe you have Italy and Germany in the third tier. And the number 7 Winning Spirit is coming in off races in Italy and Germany, where recently was not facing the top competition. There's an allowance race in Germany, and we see him near the stand side rail, and he runs very, very well to win. But you're also going to notice he is odds on in this field. Now, he was sold after that race at public auction. Clement and Company picked him up for almost $500,000.
He looks good winning this race. That's for sure. He got a great trip in this race. I have no idea what is behind him in here, Dan. And it certainly felt like it was just a great spot for him, but he ran in that race, and, it gave you the impression that the 1.5 miles is no issue for him. His German Derby 2-back, that wasn't a bad performance. He never looked like he was going to win. But he stayed on at the end of that race. The winner of that race was super impressive. That's a really good horse. And this horse just sort of plugged along and got 4th in there. It's a little bit of a layoff here. First time in North America. There are certainly things working against him, but I'm not going to be surprised when this horse is pretty good and has a pretty good campaign for Clement this year.
Wore cheek pieces in his last 2 races. Christophe usually doesn't use them, so don't be surprised if there's a little bit of an equipment change here. And if there's one thing we know about German horses, German breds, they're very stout. They'll run all day long, and this horse does seem to appreciate a distance of ground. Foreign Relations is up next for trainer Connor Murph. He made his first start of the year in his most recent effort. This is a high-level allowance race, and he ran second. I really just couldn't see the excuse. I know he got wired by the favorite, but he was right up close to the pace in a race where there was no closing going on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, they're going to wheel him back here, I guess, on short rest just to see what happens. And that pace was really slow, but he was right up close, and he just really couldn't make a race of it. But he was first off the layoff there, so maybe he needed that one, and they'll wheel him back here. He's got the one big win there that you can point to, Dan, the Louisville going this distance last May. but that was just a very deliberate pace. He got a perfect trip sitting right there, and other horses were compromised that day.
Michael Maker claimed the number 9 Lucky Curlin for $50,000 2 starts back, and then immediately stretched him out, stepped him up into a graded stakes. It had been a recipe for success for a long time for Maker. Lucky Curlin didn't run that well. He was kind of wide. Maybe you can give him that sort of an excuse, but Maker's keeping the faith running him here.
Yeah, I'm gonna try again with this horse. Again, I mean, it feels like the only thing to really like about him, at least based on his overall form, is that he's Maker off the claim, and we've seen this work before. Otherwise, he's just really hard to make a case for.
Missed the Cut is a graded stakes winner on dirt and turf at 1.5 miles. He seems to have found his niche on the turf. He has won his last 2 starts at Santa Anita. Perhaps most interesting, with Cut in the ground. He might like a little bit of Cut at Keeneland. Here's Missed the Cut, winning the San Luis Rey. I thought he got a really perfect trip and ride 2 starts back when he won the San Marcos. Here he earned it.
I agree with you. He was in a perfect spot early in this race, but then he sort of got outmoved there by that runner up there, who got the jump on him, and you could just see Mr. Cut gathering momentum in this race at mid stretch, and he's just going to go right over the top of that horse to win at 1.5 miles. He's also won at 1.5 miles on dirt. You don't have to worry about distance. His last 2 turf races are really good. He's got handy tactical speed to fall into a trip here. This horse is super dangerous shipping in.
Appleby and Godolphin have Boldak. They also have the progressive number 11 Silver Knot, who was second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf at Keeneland in 2022. Kept good company here last year. And here's his last performance, a 3rd-place effort in the Hollywood Derby. He carved out a very fast pace for this mile and an 8th distance, Mike. And it was a closer's race. The 2 chalks run him over, but I thought, did very, very well to hang in there for 3rd.
He did run well in this race. I mean, just not going to be able to hold off these 2 horses late. He's going to settle for 3rd. There's nothing wrong with this performance. He's just a horse, though, Dan, that they sort of kept over here last year as a 3-year-old, and they ran him in some tough spots. I just didn't think he was that good. I mean, we'll see. They're going to stretch him out in distance for this race, and maybe, going longer will ultimately play to his strengths where he can just be forward. And if he can stay, that can at times be a big advantage. I just don't think this horse is that good, and I don't want to bet him in here.
I do think he's versatile, though. He is fast enough to make the lead if they want it. If someone else wants it, he'll be very happy to sit just off. Let's take a look at our top picks for this race. And Mike, we're both going to go with Boldak. Listen, he looked good over this course last year. He looked good in Dubai last time out. And if he kicks like he did in his last 2 starts, he's going to be real tough to deny.
Yeah, I think he is too. I just ultimately settled for him on top. I really wanted to put the Gray Wizard on top, and I'm using that horse. He's going to be a great price in here, and I think he's a little sneaky, but he'll need to catch some breaks in this race, Dan. I'm going to take the 4 on top, and listen, I'm probably most afraid of the 10, Mr. Cut. I think that horse has a real chance at this race. He's good.
He's very, very good, and again, he doesn't mind a little give in the ground, loves the distance, tactical as well. 4-1-10-7 for Mike, 4-10-6-9 for me. It's the Grade 2 Elkhorn, one of 2 graded races at Keeneland on Saturday. Good luck.